Hey guys, it's Jenna Elfman from Fear the Walking Dead. I play Laura. No, I play Naomi. No, I play June. I play June on Fear the Walking Dead. And you're listening to the Fear the Walking Dead talk through on Talk Through Media.
Hey, I'm Lindsley Register, and I play Laura on The Walking Dead. You're listening to The Walking Dead Talk Through on Talk Through Media.
Hey, this is Ross Marquand, and you're listening to The Walking Dead Talk Through.
Awesome.
Hey, this is Mick Stahl, and you're listening to Fear the Walking Dead Talk Through.
Cool.
Hey, survivors! Welcome to episode 103 of Fear the Walking Dead Talk Through. I'm LT.
Yay! And I'm Kyle.
Yay!
Good to be back.
It's good to be back. And let's see. I do have some news to start the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. And hot off the press. Brian says hi. Brian misses all of you. And we're hoping that we can use more of our magic coercive powers and our stellar schedule realignment tools so that hopefully we can be bringing Brian back.
Yes. Yay.
Like I said, he's working like a dog. He misses you all, but it's merely through the power of scheduling that he is not with us. So we're going to try to work something up so that we can wedge him in for the mid-season finale.
So we'll be covering Fear the Walking Dead Season 8, Episode 4, titled King County. But first, we have some feedback about our last podcast. And it comes from Erin from the internet. She was reacting to the podcast. She says, Madison makes it all better, Kyle. A winky face. Same Dieta, why they don't just shoot Shrike already is beyond me. I thought young Sam was fine in the flashbacks, but young Ben was over the top. Here's another question now regarding the shipyard, and how has the CRM not looted the place or taken over Padre? We have so many organizations in the world now, and you think more would take over others, especially with helicopters for the CRM, but watch all that stuff still be there, only to be destroyed in the series finale fight, so they're back to zero. But yeah, if it's been years given Strike's age, why had the CRM not looted that place, given we know they're in the area? Are we just hand-waving away the CRM in favor of a new organization this year in Padre?
We've never established how far south CRM comes. You know, they're like and for all my northern brethren, forgive me, but they are the Yankee contingent that, you know, we've never seen them further south than, say, Pittsburgh. So thinking about, you know, Atlanta, Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, you know, that's a stretch even for the helicopter people.
And she goes on, the readers, viewers know there's no cure, but the characters don't, Kyle, so they will keep trying till all are dead or just give up trying to find one. I know, I get that, but I'll go into it a little bit later.
Well, I know, different show, different people, but didn't the guy at the CDC say there was no cure?
Yes, and then
like season 1.
Yeah. Well, and that's like it's not. I started to take the idea. It's like, okay, they're not showing this as like, oh, this is a cure in sense as like this is just another method of, instead of amputating a bite,
killing the infection,
right? So it's like I get what they're doing. They're trying to be creative, but it's also, though, it's just kind of like, especially in this episode, which we'll go on, but it's just like, oh, it's very convenient now that it's just like, oh yeah, just go do that. So I guess I'll just leave it to that. It's a new way. Slow deaths are LT's angst, LOL. Madison doesn't know Charlie killed Nick because Nick died post-fire at the stadium, which is the last we saw of Madison on the series until she popped up now. The comment still works even without her knowing because she doesn't know what all happened. So maybe there's a reason Daniel did that. Where she would have the issue is if she knew Charlie killed him and Daniel still took care of her. But again, Madison has no idea. She just knows Nick and Alicia are dead. Unless Morgan Jones told her it was Charlie. I actively tried to ignore him to enjoy scenes, so I don't know, but I feel she doesn't know still. Yes, I would agree.
Yes, I will agree as well.
And then she says, quote, she's like, I would be shocked to the point of unconsciousness. LOLLT.
Yes.
Fingers crossed to see Strand and Madison together again before the end. I thought LT might go off about Ricochet shooting around metal at the train car, but he's had a long day of trying to help Padre be better with security, so we'll give him a break.
Well, the Ricochet sound was not the worst thing. The ricochets were not the worst thing. I was just more upset that, again, if you ever saw The Jerk, when Steve Martin is standing at the gas station, the guy's shooting him with the rifle with the silencer, and he goes, someone's trying to kill these cans. It's like, those two guys, we hate windows. Pow, 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 pow. They blow out every pane of glass in the train car.
Yep.
But anyway.
All right. Well, that was all Aaron's comments from last week's episode. So that takes us into this week's. Do you want to take this?
I shall. So this week we're discussing Fear the Walking Dead Season 8, Episode 4, King County. Was written by Andrew Chambliss and Ian Goldberg. This is their fourth time in a row. Mm-hmm. Directed by Kenneth Requa. This was updated after, so not Ron Underwood. And we don't have any further information about Kenneth.
Nope. Didn't look it up. Have time.
And the description comes to us courtesy of YouTube TV. Morgan's return to King County gets complicated when Padre comes to collect.
Ooh.
And they did.
Yep.
And so, it's time for ratings, Kyle. And what do you give this week's episode?
Kind of was a little back and forth because I saw some of our listeners had much higher marks than I did. Mm-hmm. So I kind of picked just a little bit above just mid-level. So a 6, reminiscing of the old days when things were actually scary. And in that, I mean, basically watching The Walking Dead. Yeah.
And because that's one of the things that I'm going to go into is this was really an old school, early series Walking Dead episode.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
When you had scary people, you had zombie threats, and you actually had a plot that went somewhere. So, yep. And like you, I gave it a 6 as well, mainly because as much as I liked the episode, there were still some things that were, good old fear staples for us that, as much as I was sitting there loving the episode, that once again, the good old fear writing team, crept up slowly and drug defeat out of the jaws of victory once again.
They're so good at that.
So, I kept going, if you just do what you set out to do, it would be a good episode. But no, they just can't help themselves. And so I gave it a 6. Zombie wives in nightgowns. And I've got a bone to pick with some of that, but anyway.
Oh, can't wait. All right, well, let's get on with the listeners' ratings. The first one comes from Dieta from Detroit, and she says, I rate this episode 7 out of 10 callbacks to the good old days of The Walking Dead.
Glitz from Toronto gives it an 8 out of 10 crosshairs.
Ivan from Minnesota gives it a 6 out of 10. Morgan was great.
Mike from Asheville gives it a 7 out of 10. Let it burn.
And Aaron from the internet, she starts off, she says, I will start by asking, is LT shocked to unconsciousness by the Rick Grimes mentioned in this episode? Because that's as close to Rick as he's going to get.
And in my defense, I don't know if I was the one saying I wanted a Rick Grimes reference, but
yeah, I think Renee was most.
Yes, but it was just a momentary lapse.
She goes on, if not, allow me to shock him and everyone else when I say this. This was a Morgan Jones-centric episode, and I liked it.
Yes, that is the shocking one.
Yeah.
I asked Kyle, I said, are you sure? Is that not a typo?
Yeah, it's like, nope, that's exactly
that's
how she
what she said. So
she goes on, she says, I know, I'm still surprised too. This might even be the best episode all season. And that's not saying much, arguably, given the series state now. But even with Old Fear, I think this would be a good episode because it was character focused and grounded to one unit versus some larger overall society breakdown / rebuild. It felt very old Fear the Walking Dead and being about just as family trying to survive. Mm-hmm. And then she gave it a 9. King County Morgan is the best Morgan out of 10.
Wow.
Yep. That's very wow. Good. I'm glad to see some change in allowing Morgan to I guess that's the thing. We should be happy that the showrunners did something very good, but yeah, like you said, still kind of screwed it up in the end, but
well, they can't help themselves.
Yep.
So I'm gonna hit on a couple things once we get there. So
okay, sweet.
It's time.
Yeah, let's get into our awesome sauce.
All right, and we're kicking off the awesome sauce with Dieta from Detroit, who says Morgan returning to his old home to bring closure to him and his family he lost. Sad face. Seeing the clear stuff brought back memories. Yes, it did.
Yep.
Yes, it did.
Next is Glenn from Toronto, and she says, 8 out of 10 might be too high, but this episode profited from the callbacks to The Walking Dead Season 1, Episode 1, with the rifle that Rick gave Morgan and the pan out to show the dinner table where the three of them, Rick, Morgan, Dwayne, sat down and ate so long ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I was going through our the notes and putting everybody's comments in, and I have to say a lot of you all basically had exactly the same stuff that I was going to say, and that was one of the good things about this episode, because it was like you could instantly recognize everything in those scenes. You knew, it's oh, look, the table, it almost, whether or not it's set up exactly the same, but it's it looks exactly the same. It's oh yeah, Rick was on the other side of that,
Mm-hmm.
Dwayne was sitting on the steps or whatever, and they were all trying to be quiet.
Mm-hmm. So next up's Mike from Asheville, who says Morgan at his finest. I enjoyed seeing his story come full circle. I've been hanging around you too long, Kyle. I enjoyed seeing his story come full circle. Makes me wish he had stayed on the main show.
Yeah. And Ivan from Minnesota says everything with Morgan. Seeing King County was pretty sweet. Also, getting closure on his wife and son was really satisfying. This was the closest it's felt to The Walking Dead in the show for a while.
I agree. And so next up's Aaron from the internet, who says, quick question first. So Morgan is clear Morgan, as some fans call him, because he wasn't fast enough to stop his zombie wife from killing their son before. So now he's all kill first and question later. Or at least he was on the main show. Just wanted to make sure I took that the right way, and there wasn't another reason he was called that. Morgan Jones. I was all prepared to check out on this episode, giving it was a Morgan-centric episode, but then the scene of him crying in the street, asking why he can't do it happened, and I was like, they're really going to make me care about Morgan in this episode, aren't they? And I did. It's still very much too little too late with his character, and honestly, it just annoys me still that he could have been this good the whole time, but instead that forced him into when he didn't need or deserve the lead of the series, and they had him flip-flop his mind so much he gave memory loss Daniel a run for his money, and the speeches. Ugh, the speeches. But yeah, Lenny James acting in that one scene alone, awesome. Morgan also was a protector without being holier than thou. He understood why Dwight and Sherry were doing what they were doing. He acted and made good plans instead of, again, being very speech-heavy. It was just a nice episode for him. It made me want to watch a repeat of the episode. I get now why some original fans liked him and why they were excited about him coming over. Had we gotten this dude, I might have been more okay with him, but sadly we didn't get this version, I feel. I do wonder if they had done better with his introduction in that he just came in and mixed with the group like Dwight, and then we got Alicia leading him and offering to take some second teams, and then you do Nick being killed by Charlie because, again, Morgan wasn't fast enough, even though we see him not even close to where he can stop it. But that feeling is there, and Strand pulls the group or makes questionable choices, and Alicia has to deal with her feelings there again. You see Morgan kind of set up, and so he gradually moves up in importance, but he isn't instantly taking over like we got. And so by season 6, they're more co-leaders and maybe have disagreements. And if they had to put down, say, Zombie John Dory instead of what happened to him, you see a family hurting. And so basically, it builds up to this when Morgan returns to bury his family because he never killed them. Instead of waiting until the season and near final episodes of it, we see this and can understand maybe some of his choices. Because again, while they wish fans watched all the shows, the truth is we don't, and I for one, never knew about Morgan. So this could have helped him or helped me like him more, along with him being part of the group, but not leading the group off the bat like they very much forced. He's still a golden child, and I get now why some fans thought he was going to be awesome on here. Too bad this Morgan wasn't the version we got the whole time. Also in the awesome sauce category, Dwight and Sherry. They made for good bad guys, but also they weren't really bad, as you can understand why they were doing what they were sent there for. I do wonder, though, how older TWD fans feel having this standoff and Morgan wrap up having it be on another show, essentially, versus wrapping up on the main one since they all started there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That is basically the epitome of what I think season 4 kind of started off. It's like they wanted to change things up, and then they started bringing in over crossover characters, but then how they were having them interact ended up just not really playing off. Because I mean, this was kind of one of the like things that I ended up making making my rating less, because it was just like, oh, while this is kind of like the Morgan that I wanted to see, but it was like, to me, it felt very disconnected, because I was kind of like, okay, wait, why is he now coming here? You know, what's happening?
Yeah.
You know, like, why is this now a big deal? Like, I just don't understand how this fits in the whole grand scheme of things of what we've seen. So, and if they did do this whole thing like you're saying, Aaron, then it was like, yeah, there would be much more emotion, much more attachment, but that's not what we got. So it just is what it is.
Yeah, and like we've said before, you had some really good actors who did the best with what they were given. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I still go for, if it was a crap episode, it was because it was written poorly and not for lack of trying on the actor's part.
Right. The actors' parts for sure. It's like they we know how good a lot of them are, and it's like you just know that they're having to read this stuff and do it, and they're like, hey, it's paycheck. And at this point, they're ending the series, so it's like, why not? You can still, they don't have to. We'll wait for their, their autobiographies or whatever. They'll books they'll release years later saying how much they really didn't like the show or something.
And I want to just throw it in here before I forget. It's the same thing that I said on last season of The Walking Dead. If you can do this well, writing, then why didn't we see this 2 seasons ago or 3 seasons ago? When we're sitting here, languishing in the, like, Carol and the Whisperers and the fence thing and the deer and, some of the things that we had that were just going, for the love of God, just do something. And then last season, last few episodes, knocked out of the park. Granted, I know we're dealing with the boys here, and this may be the best they can do, but still, if it took the threat of ending the show to make them write this well, then they should have been threatening them more earlier.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
But anyway,
all right. Let's continue. All right, Aaron, thank you so much. Like I said, a lot of you all pretty much had some of the same points I was going to bring up. So, LT, do you have any other awesome sauces?
I do, and I'm going to say it whether you said it or not already. So, I will, again, go on record and say this is possibly the best episode Lenny James has delivered for the show. Mm-hmm. He had some good scenes in The Walking Dead, but as far as his tenure on Fear, I think this was his best performance. And, I will die on that hill. Because it started off with, the crying in the street and just him dealing with the thought of he couldn't save his family, and then he couldn't finish his family. Mm-hmm. And I've seen Lenny James in some other shows, because he did this BBC cop show where he was a detective, where he was really good, and it was strange hearing him talk like he really talks. But as far as Fear, I think this is one of his best performances, if not the best. And as everybody has said, we finally get some actual fear in Fear. That we had the impending threat of zombies at the door, and some more of a few jump scares, and the fingers on the glass, and some of the things that we have, I think that we've come to miss in the main show when we got bogged down in so many other things, when part of what sold us on the show is interpersonal drama with the live people and the threat of zombies outside. So it was good to see them kind of, get back to the roots of what made the series work. I made a note and said we had some fighty fights. We could actually see Morgan using the stick, doing his thing. We got walkers at the door. Lots more old school Walking Dead stress, like when Mo was in the attic with Zombie Dwayne. Mm-hmm. That was pretty creepy. I listed Awesome Sauce as the rifle. When they went into the house, and Morgan said, there's a rifle upstairs by the window, and there should be a box of ammo underneath the bed. And he actually said, this is the rifle that, Rick Grimes gave me. And so we got our one bit of fan service there that they actually said it. along with the rifle, I'm going to give the production team a lot of credit. And I realize that may not have been the house, but the set dressers and the way they had it set up really made me think that they were back on the same set.
Yeah.
Major props to the production team for pulling that off, because when I was watching it, it didn't hit me right off the bat. I was going, this looks awfully familiar.
Yeah.
And then it kind of hit me and I'm going, this is the house. This is where Morgan was. Even though I know they did, I don't think they filmed it where they filmed the original. Yeah, they may have, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was very well done. Down to the graffiti on the walls and all that. I was very impressed.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And I think my other last bit of awesome sauce is Morgan finally made the hard choice. When it came down to he couldn't kill Dwayne before. He couldn't shoot his wife before. But now when he was presented with, does he shoot zombie Dwayne or risk Little Mo getting eaten, he finally made the hard choice and he pulled the trigger.
Yeah, I have to agree. I'm curious if there's any, because that was obviously one of the good parts about this episode was the callbacks, the familiarity of like what the scenes and stuff like that. But I know that Dwayne in the comic was chained up and left by Morgan, and I'm curious if there was any kind of comic details that were in that scene, or what, because I don't think Morgan kills Dwayne in the comic, but I don't know. I don't know if I've gotten that far, because I
can't remember. And
I just know he left him and left him. And so I just whether or not he came back, but still, that was another scene though. It was like Dwayne was actually chained up, and it was like I know exactly that's from the comic, and so that was good to see. So that was definitely, I would have to say, was overall awesomeness.
Yep.
All right. Well, if that is it for the awesomes, let's get into our week.
You're worthless and weak.
Let's kick off the week sauce with Ivan from Minnesota, who says everything with Padre was stupid. Wish they weren't in this episode, and Dwight and Sherry are ticking me off. Frowny face. They should have just worked together from the start. Padre's soldiers and Shrike are the least intimidating villains ever. We saw that with Dwight's son, who got away so easily, and they all just need to die. Well, Ivan, tell us how you really feel.
And later, I think I might have some foreshadowing of that, so we'll see.
Yep.
All right, next is Erin from the internet, and she says, Grace being bit. I get they aren't going to kill another kid potentially, but Grace being bit after just making a speech about how she doesn't have long to live, anyways, felt weak. Also, I know they're doing it to keep them coming back to Padre, but yeah, it doesn't make me worry for Grace anymore. And it's not like, oh no, she could have made it, because she never was going to. If anything, Padre will probably use this to say, see kids, we are sparing you from this. Just weak. Mm-hmm. However, if it does give her 6 months and they try to say the cure works, then we better see Alicia in the finale. She was the OG to be bit and then radiated, so if Grace and Finch are fine, Alicia can be too. Pay Alicia the money you owe her, Gimple, for screwing her out of a lead for this series, post-screwing Kim out of a job. And give us original fans still left something for putting up with your poor show-killing choices these last few years. Always to the point, Aaron.
Indeed so.
Yeah, I can't disagree. It was like, I actually missed it, and my husband turned to me and was like, oh, look, she got bit. And I was like, huh? What? And then, I had to rewind it to basically see that happen. But it was kind of like, wait, I was kind of like, she already just says she's going to die. So like, why did they even have her a bit? It just made no sense. And then it's like, okay, sure, fine.
Yeah, I mean, she's already full of radiation anyway. So if radiation's the cure, then
right, then she should.
There you go.
Then she should be fine.
Well, and I figure they did it so she can be, you know, sweaty and weak next week for whatever they do.
Yeah. Well, anyways, yeah, I can't disagree. It was weak. All right. Well, that's all our listeners' week sauce. Again, I didn't really have too much to really say. I actually had some stuff for Watt, so I'll just leave it at that. So LT.
Right. And I think that the stuff that I said was weak. I think everybody else whatted. So I'm going to go ahead. My first week sauce is, of course, Little Mo doing the young Carl trope. Because what's one thing that always happened in the main show is Rick and Carl go somewhere, Rick gets distracted, Carl wanders off and gets into trouble. And that was the perfect example of, as soon as she started walking away from them, when Morgan was like sitting on the stump looking like he's giving a speech, and you see her in the background wandering away, I said, something bad is going to happen because she's wandering away. And of course, something bad did happen. Since I'm on the topic of that, I could whot it, but I'll weak it since I'm here. Explain to me, if this house burned to the ground, how this walker was not so charbroiled and desiccated that it was able to leap out of the floorboards and bite anybody.
Right.
I'm sorry. And I know you guys may be tired of it, but however, I will pull this little nugget out of my background, is that if you're in a fire and you're burnt that bad, you're crispy crunchy. It's like charcoal. The zombie would not be able to move if it was in a fire like that. He would have been sauteed in his own juices and would be, dare I say, immobile. So I was like, really? Really?
Yeah.
And I'm going to, and I will complain about the fire in my hot sauce. The other weak sauce that I have goes back to, and I'm sure if Brian was here, we would talk, after the many, many times we talked about Rhode Island, Texas, that obviously the Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia are about the size of, I don't know, maybe the distance from Nashville to Knoxville in Tennessee. Explain to me how Morgan walked and Grace and Little Mo drove, and frickin' Sherry and Dwight rode on horseback from wherever Padre should be, which I'm assuming is somewhere on the Gulf Coast, all the way back to Atlanta. Now, granted, we understand that Morgan fell asleep in the back of a truck. Fell asleep in Mississippi and woke up in Texas. I just am really, or was it the other way around? Anyway, the point is, this show's always had problems with time and distance, and this is it.
Yeah, agreed.
That you can't tell me that somebody didn't do a lot of stopping at rest areas or pausing or sleeping or something, or, Morgan is the king champion of through hikers. to go from wherever they were in the swampy part of the United States to Atlanta. And I just, again, I scratch my head and I go,
Yeah.
So it's just too far. It's too far. And you can't tell me that Dodge has warp drive or that Morgan is running flat out or God knows, horses. They rode horses. You know, I like I said, I struggle.
Yeah. No, you should, because it really, they basically have thrown that out the window and it doesn't matter. They're just like, poof, hey, this is just where we're going to do it. And then everybody just comes together. But it's like, yeah, like.
Yeah. And we're used to seeing Sherry and Dwight on horseback, and I get that. But I'm going, there's no way in hell you're going to tell me that if it was Morgan in a truck versus Sherry and Dwight in the horses, I would have an objection. But when you add to the fact that Morgan was walking, I mean, so how slow was Grace driving, just to not overtake him? Or did she just pass him on the interstate somewhere while he was sleeping? And she's just been, she's been hanging out at the American Girl store in Atlanta or something. Killing time. I don't know.
Yep. Yeah. It's you just go with it at this point.
Yeah,
which is annoying, but it
boggles the mind. But that's a boggle we're used to having. So.
Yep. All right. Well, if that was all of the weeks,
it is.
Then let's get into the what's.
What?
All right. We have our first one from Ivan from Minnesota, and he says, "Oh hell no!" And he says, "I know you got rid of it, but I love this sauce with this show." Smiley face.
Yep.
Grace getting bit. Totally dumb how it happened, and this show just knows how to get under my skin. ...
Mm-hmm.
I might have to bring back "Oh hell no" for the mid-season finale.
Well, we'll keep that in our pocket in case of emergency.
Yeah.
So, Aaron from the internet says, why is Morgan wanting to kill his family now after leaving them for so long? Nothing really explained this, so why now? And again, how do Walking Dead fans feel having this plot wrapped up essentially on another show in the series versus the main show given Morgan started there? Why did Morgan move Dwayne and Jenny to a different house? The first one he went to in the opening had no paint on it, it seemed at this point, but the house they end up in was yellow, so did Morgan just forget where he lived, or did he really move them, and if so, why?
Should we answer that?
No. And she goes on to say, fear geography. How did Morgan walk from the swamps to King County? Is King County near swamps? Last I know, he didn't have access to a boat to get to the mainland, as they call it. They just are ignoring distance and place names as much as possible to have these settings seem possible, it feels. When are we even in the U.S. anymore?
Oh, goodness.
Well, it just goes to prove the efficacy of our interstate highway system.
It's just stellar, even after the fall of humanity.
That's right.
No, I wanted to go back to her question of saying, why did Morgan move Dwayne and Jenny to a different house? And that we saw that in episode 1, season 1 of The Walking Dead, that his wife turned and he took Dwayne to a neighbor's house. It was like down the street, because that's where Rick ends up, they running into it. So, I mean, that was a house that Morgan knew, in other words. Yeah. So it's like, it wasn't just like, some like random house that he just picked and he didn't forget where he lived. He was skipping the main house because that's where basically his wife was, that he escaped before killed. Well, we never knew if he killed her or not, did we?
No.
Yeah, and I think in that scene where he kind of forgot that he thought Dwayne was back at the main house, but Dwayne was obviously at the other house. So
Right.
yeah, he went back thinking that Dwayne was in the same room where his wife was. I guess he remembered that he shot her and killed her, but it was some other walker. So it was like, that was the whole,
Right.
play on that right there. It was like, no, he's at the other house. Anyways, but good questions, good observations there, Aaron.
Yeah.
And we already kind of talked about the geography. Let's move on from that.
Mhm.
All right. Next is Mike from Asheville, and he says, okay, isn't King County in Georgia and Padre in Texas? Did I miss something about location, or are they really trying to make these two places close together? If we are meant to believe it's Georgia and Texas, why would Padre waste resources going that far? How did Morgan walk that far again? Dwight and Sherry rode horses across 3 or 4 states? Seriously, I couldn't enjoy this episode as much as I would like to. I kept thinking about the fact that the last I knew, our crew was in Texas and Morgan originated in Georgia. Please tell me if I'm wrong. Please. And then last was like Mo calling them mom and dad. That was awful quick. I agree with that. That almost kind of shocked me when she just started. I was like, whoa, wait, Mo, that was quick. She's all into this family.
And I hate to tell you, but you're not wrong, Mike. I can't say you're wrong.
Yeah. I was trying to look up to see if, because we don't know where Padre is. Obviously, yeah, probably off the Gulf Coast, because it's obviously we saw the container boxes and there was a port, and so yeah, it's like where that is.
And that's why I'm thinking if I had to conjecture, that's why I was putting Padre somewhere like near Mobile.
Yeah.
Our Gulfport, Mississippi, or somewhere in the panhandle of Florida, which if they had gotten that far east, if they were in the panhandle, then theoretically it's not as bad a jump to go to Atlanta. But as I've said before, where I live 4 hours driving from Mike in Asheville in the mountains. It's a 6-hour drive from my house to Atlanta. It's another 6, conjecturally, from Atlanta to, say, Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still talking about a fairly sizable piece of real estate to go from Atlanta to somewhere on the Gulf Coast. So
yeah, it's still
it's not close.
Yeah, it's I don't remember when we kind of talked about it. Maybe it's like maybe a couple seasons ago when this kept coming up. But it was like it wouldn't hurt them at all to even just do kind of a montage of them traveling, of just some quick snippets.
For God's sake, do the Indiana Jones map with the red line.
Seriously, that would totally just be like, okay, I get it. It took them like 2 weeks to get to this point.
Shows a map of welcome to Texas, then dun 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 dun, dun and then draw the little red line across the screen.
They could even animate a little swarms that they like.
No. Do like they did with Tales.
Oh,
and the story with
the first one with
Terry Crews.
Yeah, Terry Crews and
Olivia Munn.
Yeah.
Because they had the thing where you could have shown Morgan walking and had the sign go by, and like you said, do a travel montage.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be long. It'd just be a quick snippet. It'd be like, oh, look, okay, and we could see all, it would have just easy to do, but no.
Easy to do. I mean, they did it sort of when you saw him stepping over the Welcome to King County sign, but again, it's a long way from Galveston to Atlanta.
Right. No. And then it doesn't answer. Yeah, it just, well, yeah,
and as I said to one of my friends who lives in the UK, they were talking about distance here versus distance there. That I have a friend who lives on the east coast of England. And when I said, well, I have to drive, 2 hours to the state capital, and it's like 3.5, 4 to go to the beach. And her point was, well, if I drive 4 hours, I'm in Prague. So again, it's distance.
Yep. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, thank you, Mike, for your what sauces. All right. Well, then that goes into ours. I kind of already said a bunch of this stuff, but I was kind of agreeing with Aaron, because when I first watched the episode, I was like, wait, I don't get this. Like, why does he all of a sudden care? And then, it was like what instigated this? Because we didn't really, there wasn't anything that we saw in previous episodes except one thing that would have led up to like, oh, has this been on his mind, or like whatever? Because we do see the part at the beginning where Mo is like kind of wiping off the wall of the boathouse that she started to remember, like, oh yeah, we were here once and you're my mom or whatever. And so we get the cues of like, oh, King County, Dwayne, Jenny, but it's like, it's been so long that it's like, I started wondering, like, location, like, we've been talking about. It's like, is Padre now like the location closer to Atlanta? And so that's why this has been on his mind more, or, it's been 10 years or something like that. It just didn't make any sense of like, how did we get to this point? Again, if we had an episode where he was doing something completely random, but then he all of a sudden started having these clear moments, and it was like, and flashbacks of his son or whatever, then it'd be like, oh, and he, then that could have led up to it. But I think they were even saying that Mo, like when Mo was saying that she called or sent off the whatever their code word to get them to come, because he said Madison said that you have something important to take care of. And it was like, wait, so like, I don't know. It was like, they just threw a whole bunch of stuff and we're like, oh, okay, that's why we're here, or this is why it matters. But I just felt like I liked this episode. I enjoyed, getting all the callbacks and like, seeing the really good scenes of like the old house and, having those flashbacks from the original series. And then, it was just like, okay, so just like in Tales, they did the D episode that it's like, oh, here's a Morgan episode that they're trying to be like, oh, hey, all the OGs, come watch our show and maybe they'll get more ratings or something like that. Like, I just feel like that was the whole point of this episode. Had nothing to do with the story. They threw some Padre stuff in there, but there was like no reason at all to even do this. And
right.
That was just like, that was it. They were just like, oh yeah, we've done such a horrible job with show running Fear. It's like, hey, let's do a Morgan episode and,
let's do some fan service.
Right. And it's just like, okay, fine.
And I guess like you're saying, just to throw it in here, if it's been bugging you that much, I mean, it's been over 10 years. It's been a long time. And why is this just now bugging you?
Right.
It's like, I guess I just keep thinking, if this has been eating at you for this long, why now?
Mm-hmm. Right. What was the trigger? Like that would have been something.
Was having a kid again? Did little Mo just snap something in your noggin that made you think about Dwayne? Or
yeah. Maybe that was this
same
age or something.
Same thing you said. What is the motivation of this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is this your midlife crisis?
And it just is all coming flooding back, and you're like, oh crap, I forgot that I should have.
Since you can't buy a convertible, I don't know.
And then the next one, I was like, I kind of already talked about it. It's like there is no cure. And, I do get that if they're trying to do this in a way of like, oh, instead of just what we've already seen and know about amputating, a bite on an arm or something like that, that can be dealt with really quickly, that can stop the infection, and then that can actually, like keep you from dying. But this radiation thing is like, okay, well, if it's off something you can't amputate, then how would you like be able to stop the infection? And it's just like, okay, well, radiation, because we have plenty in the show from past seasons that they can carry over. But then again, it's like, it's not like that radiation, this therapy or whatever, is like a simple procedure. But I just feel like they're acting like that all like, oh yeah, it just works because they now have little Dwight and Sherry's boy that just seems to have
Dwight Jr.
Dwight Jr., yes, who had like, again, we have no concept of time, like had one like procedure we don't know, and now he's seemingly totally fine and can take down Shrike like with like no it's just it's. And now that now that Grace got bit, and it's like, oh, we got to take her to June. And it's just like, okay, so is this just like the go-to now? It's like, okay, cool. Everybody can get saved. All right, Oprah. It's like, you get radiation. Everyone gets radiation.
But Grace is already chock full of radiation. She was chock full of freaking radiation when we met her, and now she's even more irradiated because of the nukes. And you're going to tell me, oh, well, June has special radiation.
Yeah. Oh, well, if Grace somehow, if Grace somehow survives this and turns into like, oh, I'm the walking cure, and then just like, oh, we can use Grace's blood, which is like got even more radiation in it, and it's a special kind.
Yeah, I'm like, really.
it's just stupid. Oh, well, I guess we'll see. We have 2 more episodes till the mid-season, and then another, 6 more?
Another 6.
I know.
Yay.
Oh, all right. Well, that's all that I had. So what do you have, LT?
Well, the first one I want to bring up is the burning/burnt house. Those houses are awfully close together. And if that house would have burned down to the amount that it burned down, you wouldn't just see scorched vinyl siding on the house next door. There's not a fire department to come put the fire down. So this would have been, dare I say, a 1600s London-esque / Mrs. O'Leary's cow in Chicago kind of fire. And it would have burnt that whole freaking neighborhood to the ground. Sorry, I have to go there. Just like if it would have just freshly burnt down like it did, they're not going to be sitting in the ashes because that thing is still going to be hot.
Hot, yeah, right.
Because with no water like that, that house is going to be hot for days. So, no. I like seeing Dwayne in the attic, but I have questions about Dwayne in the attic. How long has Dwayne been in the attic? He's been in the attic for a long time. And no one has ever really talked about how long a zombie is actually viable. But I keep thinking to myself, if you leave a cadaver out, even if it's in the attic for 10 years, I don't think he's going to be in much condition. And especially the fact that you've got him chained around the midsection. I was kind of going, well, you realize that they're in Atlanta. So if he's in the attic, it's going to be very hot.
Yep.
So they wouldn't had to have, wondered where Dwayne was. They could probably smell him. I mean, I just am having, 10 years in the attic chained up like that, he would have pulled himself in half.
Right.
And somebody's going to say, well, the zombies aren't active when there's nobody around. So you mean to tell me that nobody's been in that neighborhood?
For 10 years or whatever?
For 10 years, which goes back to, so how many rounds did Morgan have for that rifle? he was doing a lot of shooting, and I don't remember him having that much ammo. And the fact that the rifle's been sitting in upstairs for however many years, and the only thing I could tell is there was like some dust on the muzzle. And I said, that thing would be that would be a red, rusty wreck. Because again, we're talking about Atlanta. It's humid and hot. Things rust. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's the rifle, but come on. The question that I posed to Kyle earlier is, so how much residual is the lady in the house coat making from all the appearances? Or was that the same clip they just kept showing over and over and over again? Because I'm like, Morgan, maybe you need to clean the lens on that rifle a little bit, because you keep seeing the same woman every time you look through the scope. And I get why they did it, but it was to the point where I'm like, oh, come on, guys. And then after all this, I can't do it. Boy, he didn't lack any subtlety or any hesitation when he shot those two guys on the dock, now did he?
No.
And I'm going, yeah, real sneaky there, Morgan. Just pop up and shoot them with your high-power hunting rifle. And I mean, I get that it serviced the point at the time, but it's like, yeah, no subtlety or stealth there. But hopefully they didn't fall off in the water so you can go grab their rifles, which I know you won't do, but it'd be a nice thought. And I guess my final what is, for a kid that just got bit by a zombie and had a train car appendectomy, Dwight Jr. is awfully perky. Obviously they've been giving him his vitamins, and he's been getting plenty of fresh air and sunshine and vitamin C.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, for somebody who just had major surgery and just got irradiated, he's awfully spry and got a lot of energy. Of course, he is young, so I'll give him that. But I just remember when my daughter had her appendectomy, she was not nearly that perky for quite some time. And just, speaking from my own surgical experience, after I had my gallbladder out, I can't say that I was that perky. But,
yeah, maybe it's just June's special,
could be
sauce.
Could be. Or maybe it's whatever they put in the food at Padre.
Yeah. Maybe it's just really, really good food. Very good nutrition. Oh.
Well, I was going to say, there was only one side effect I remember from eating MREs, but that's another topic for another day.
All right. Well, was that all? Shall we go on?
That is it, sir.
All right. Well, then that takes us into our sad and aw sauce. Aww. All right.
And we'll kick off our sad and aw sauce with Deanna from Detroit, who says, Grace gets bit saving Mo. Now the rush is on to get Grace to June for the new radiation cure. And she's got an eye roll.
And it
looks like a crying face. It's like, will they make it?
I'm sure they will.
Well, it's not that far to go from Atlanta back to Padre.
Right. We've seen them. It's a quick trip.
Yep.
All right. Next is Ivan from Minnesota. It says, Morgan finally shooting Dwayne. It was good, but hard to see. Also, props on the kid's Walker makeup. It was incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was creepy.
Mike from Asheville says, Grace, why they got to do that to her? Do we really need more drama? We don't need another addition to this storyline.
That I agree.
Indeed.
Erin from the internet, her awe is, I like it when you smile. And that was a quote. And she said, big heart. Sad was Morgan in the street crying over not being able to kill the zombie version of his family. And that was a broken heart emoji.
Yep.
All right. Well, that was all our listeners' sad and all sauce. So let's go into ours. And I guess one that I thought was kind of probably more awe than sad, was like Mo, when they were in the the Morgan house, and she was asking how things asking him how things used to be, just like, the old world or whatever. And it was just interesting, again, because like having characters now that were actually born into the apocalypse, and like not knowing anything about what it was like before, just knowing what it is now, and just like only hearing stories about like the old days. I wrote in my notes, kind of sad, but it was just like, oh, girl, like, you have no idea. Like, she'll never know what it's like to play, a video game or, or something that like the newest fad, or like, freaking an iPod, it's like playing games on that, the kids nowadays, when I was growing up, they have more cool stuff than I ever could imagine.
Yeah. Talking to your friends on the phone and hanging out at the mall and walking down to the store to get ice cream and, getting in arguments with other girls because you like somebody, and just all the, junior high drama and
instead it's learning to
records and TV and the internet and wasting time and cars and hairstyles and having to go shop for the latest fashion trend and having your mom yell at you because you got your ears pierced and all those other things.
I thought it was also interesting, Mo saying like, oh, is this what it's like to fight with your parents? And they were, I forgot what the exact scene it was, but she like mentioned that it was in the same realm of when she started calling them mom and dad or saying that. But for one, she's quick to all of a sudden be like, oh, hey, I like, this is like a family, parents. And then from what we've been told that, she's been brought up of being like, oh, they abandon you. Parents are bad. Don't like them. But, it was another one of those things where it's just like, although the storyline of what Padre is stupid, but like, I like this, like the character that basically is like, what's the word? Like, not naive, but like just does not have that experience of like what that was like, what a parent is like, doesn't have those same, like, never grew up with those kind of morals or like that kind of stuff to like see them kind of like, just even it was like silly dialogue. I don't know. I like that kind of stuff. It's just, the way it's being done here is not always like the greatest. So.
Right. Well, and I think my sad sauce is I am going to go in with the crowd and say, after all this, Grace gets bitten. And I'm going, the radiation, because we know that the whole thing with she was pregnant, she lost the baby, and, her and Morgan, and just the way things go. And I like her character. And I said, of course, we have to have somebody get bitten because we need more drama.
Yes.
And I'm like we don't already have enough drama. We need more. And I will concur with Aaron that it did kind of tear me up watching that scene where Morgan's fighting the walkers in the street. And he's like, I can do it. I could do it. I could do it. I can't do it. And while we still don't know what kicked it off to make him go there, it was kind of rough seeing him still struggle to finally have to shoot Dwayne. So,
yeah, it was sad. All right, well, then that leads us into our feedback.
We can talk about it. Done talking. Time to listen.
All right. We did not get any voicemail from Renee that I saw. Hopefully she'll come back at some point. All right. So this goes into our written feedback. And our first one comes from Ivan from Minnesota. It says, Morgan in his story was pretty sweet, but Padre and all that garbage was annoying. Dwight and Sherry are written so poorly. This is my favorite episode by far this season. So there's that.
Yes. And Deanna from Detroit says, so did I miss another time jump because the last episode ended with Shrike at the cargo containers with the fence of walkers and them supposedly leaving Padre? Now she's giving orders over the radio and getting outsmarted by a newly cured from a bite little boy. What happened and how did we get here? There is no in between with this show. It just jumps everywhere. I agree with Ivan. All that Padre stuff just messed up the episode. What could have been a good Morgan, Grace, and Mo episode, but then it became an all over the place, not making sense episode. Did we really need Dwight and Sherry this episode? And when did they find out their son was cured after watching him get bitten? Did the radiation treatment work that fast because he is up and Adam taking the stool out from under Shrike? Shrug, shrug. Don't get me wrong, I like seeing Dwight and Sherry, but yeah, they weren't needed for this episode and neither was Padre. Where's Madison and Daniel? I thought they were going to be attacking Padre or something. She's got I guess a sad face and a chin scratch. He says, oh, how does Padre keep finding our people? Morgan was minding his business and then here comes Shrike and Padre asking what he was doing there. Aren't you supposed to be relocating Padre or something? Why are they constantly chasing Morgan and Madison and threatening to kill them, but don't? Yeah, I'm over
it. Yeah, they don't seem to really have it on point right now.
No.
All right, next is Mike from Asheville. He says, I agree with Ivan. We didn't need Padre in this, and they are weak. This season is going to be spent on avoiding a group that could easily be taken down by our people. Such a great episode to be ruined by knowing the season will be horrible in general.
Well, yeah. But it's like truth in advertising. We knew what we were getting.
True. That's true.
All right. Glenn from Toronto says, Morgan also didn't disappoint with having yet another mantra changed from you know what it is to I can do it, I can kill you, and you, I can kill all of you. Back then, when Dwayne got bitten by Jenny, his mom, Morgan, was in clear mode, and yet he couldn't bring himself to kill his son, but instead chained him up in the attic, ironically enough, where he had aimed Rick's rifle at his wife, Jenny, but couldn't bring himself to do the deed and squeeze the trigger. So are we to understand that Mo orchestrated the meeting between her, Grace, and Morgan by Mo sending out the radio signal herself, and she also knew exactly where Morgan was located? Her girl guide powers, or is it bird migration powers, are really strong with this one. So, now Dwight and Sherry are all of a sudden anti-Morgan and demanding he surrender and go back to Padre. Lo and behold, another standoff, threefold, between Dwight and Sherry Walkers and the house where Morgan, Grace, and Mo scramble to. Really, Dwight and Sherry are now willing to harm Mo by sending burning walkers to the house in order to save their son Finch, who still has an issue with sleeping. Then, Finch sideswipes Shrike on code instructions from when Dwight asked for proof of life while on the phone, and then Finch, the son that never sleeps, slipped onto the boat bound to his parents. Morgan now leads Grace and Mo out of the house to run to the gauntlet of walkers. In spite of his mantra of I can do it, he still can't do it. So Dwight, I think, instead shoots the walker, but not in time for Mo having to head back into the house. Then Morgan eventually saves Mo from the attic after finally gathering up the iron to put Dwayne out of his misery. When Morgan, Grace, and Mo were now out of the house, and Morgan and Grace were reconnecting and Grace telling Morgan she's really sick, I was thinking to myself that Mo was being pretty casual, walking and ambling around the area and flipping through the photo album and letting her guard down. Well, hey, presto, there's a walker all of a sudden chomping about, and Grace is the only one that gets bit. Wouldn't Grace already be vaccinated of sorts against walker bites as she's been exposed to radiation? Yes. So Morgan really saves Finch, Dwight, and Sherry by shooting those Padre guards at the boat, and now there's a scene that all the writers seem to love of Morgan, Grace, and Mo gunning it down the river to June, Blue Jay. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's again, that's like, it's one of those things where you're just like, oh no, is this what they're doing? Because we know that Grace had so much problems or whatever with exposure to radiation, to her even just saying, oh no, it's back and I'm dying, I have 6 months or whatever, then getting a bite that we know that they're treating it with radiation, that she somehow turns into like the the cure-all or something. I don't know. It seems
I don't know either.
It seems too on the nose, but like we can expect this from these writers that it's so blatantly obviously where they're going. I don't know.
Yeah, because every time they do something and we're going, this is blatantly obvious, then they end up doing something else and we're going, what? What?
I guess. Yeah, I guess it's true. Oh, goodness.
Well, I mean, I'll give them credit for subverting our expectations, but still.
Yeah. Not sure if I said anything about it or not, but well, Glenn is bringing up that that to understand that Mo orchestrated this meeting, and yeah, she did say that. I didn't catch that at first on my first watch, but then after seeing her comments, yeah, I went back and looked, and she blatantly says, "Yes, I did it." After talking to Madison,
yeah.
So, I thought that was interesting because I don't know, just that it's just the easy way to like, or that Mo is really ankling for them to be a family kind of thing. I guess that she went through all this trouble to do this. So,
I mean, I could think of a lot easier ways to get some family bonding time in, but still.
Oh, well, I guess plot needed Morgan to be in King County.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you all for your wonderful feedback. Did you have anything left?
No, I just, like you said, I know that we're getting close to wrap up time for 8A. So I just wonder what they're going to do with these last 2 episodes before we go breaking.
Yeah, that's actually, we'll have something to like say with that. So I guess let's just move on. Again, ratings, going to hold on into the mid-season finale, and hopefully, yeah, if Brian gets on, then maybe he'll
he'll be able to pair it for us.
Yes.
I want to go ahead and throw this out here. Did I say the Padre thing earlier, or did I not?
Oh no, you did not say that.
I didn't. Okay, so I was driving to work the other day, and I'm still pondering over the fact that Padre is an acronym. And just milling over words in my head, I finally came to the conclusion that Padre stands for Post-Apocalypse Disaster Recovery Equipment, or, Disaster Recovery Echelon, or, I was trying to think, what does Padre stand for? Because we know it's an acronym because they always show it in all caps, or when you see it on the cargo boxes, it's got periods after all the letters. So It's got to stand for something. And so far, nobody has guessed, and so I'm putting my guess out there.
No, that's a good guess, because it's like, we know that this was some government organization or, government project that was, had some about like how to, like, I guess if not necessarily probably the zombie apocalypse, but like if there was like a breakdown in a community, that this was a way for, them to get supplies to people and stuff like that. Kind of like FEMA, but like on steroids.
Yeah. And what was it? Somebody said, please all dudes run east.
Yeah. Well, we do get the backstory a little bit of that Senator Vasquez that was kind of like behind that, and then what their people died at that hotel, and then Alicia found the book that everybody didn't want to read. So that's what you were saying sounds about right, especially when you see all the cargo that's sitting in the
and if you noticed, one of the cargo boxes said desert, and one of the cargo boxes said like tropical.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, the desert one has, sunscreen and water and big shady hats. And
and one of those little hat fans.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
Cool.
tropical print shirts.
Well, if you'll get your confirmation in the show.
Well, I hope they'll tell us. I really
I hope
do.
so too. Like it'll be the last thing when it's all burning around that this piece of paper rolls by. It says
the notebook will finally flip open
to the right page. Oh goodness, that's too funny. Don't really have any news. Again, it's hard to come by whenever I'm like trying to get everything else done. But 2 more episodes actually 2 weeks until Dead Island, because it's also premiering on the same time as the mid-season finale. So
yep,
we're going to get a double dose of whatever Fear gives us to what I'm hoping is going to be basically everybody's new best show.
I'm really hoping that, whatever Fear does won't spoil Negan and Maggie's big road trip.
Yeah.
So I've seen the last set of previews for it, and I'm kind of going, because I think it's going to be extra creepy. But I really, really, really have this, the little burning thing in the back of my head. It's like, please don't make this stupid.
Yeah.
Please don't make this stupid.
Yeah. I feel that because it does have 2 characters that people really love, but it's also a new premise and a new location, a new just in the universe kind of thing. And we've seen that the variants kind of play a role, or at least, there are more different kind of crazy looking walkers. And then of course they're probably like, oh, and it's New York. Ooh, like big city. But I don't know. I feel like it's like if they screw this up, then I'm like, I don't know. Then
So they're going to have a bunch of walkers that don't make eye contact and ignore you on the sidewalk.
Yes, and wearing fedoras or like whatever the hipsters wear nowadays.
Gucci shoes.
Throwing vinyl records at each other and like that's a headshot because vinyl is in. Anyways. Just everybody hold on. I think we've got some fun times ahead of us. So
we do.
All right, LT, you want to tell people how to interact with us?
Yes, I will, Kyle. We want to encourage you to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. That's @WalkingDeadTTM. To submit your theories and feedback, most people post in the designated episode thread in our Facebook group. That's facebook.com/groups/WalkingDeadTTM. You can send us an email. That's walkingdead@talkthroughmedia.com. You can also use the feedback forum on our webpage. That's talkthroughmedia.com/feedback. If you'd like to leave us voicemail, you can call area code 216-232-6146. Remember that all of our new episodes are out on YouTube. Just search for Talk Through Media and remember to subscribe and click that bell to get notified when we have new videos. We also want you to like and review the Talk Through Media Facebook page at facebook.com/talkthroughmedia. Of course, the absolute best way you can support us is through our Patreon. That's www.patreon.com/walkingdeadtalkthrough. And we'd like to thank all of our Patreon supporters: Renee Murray, Deetta Patterson, Mike Rollo, me, and Kyle McAdams.
Yay!
Remember that Deetta, Renee, Mike, Kyle, and LT will both be getting an early version of the episode this week.
I already got it.
So did I. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or the podcast client of your choice. While you're there, give us a rating or a review. You can also leave us a review at podchaser.com. You can rate individual episodes or the whole podcast. And remember to share our posts on Facebook and Twitter when we post them, or tell a friend. Word of mouth is the best way to get us new listeners.
All right. So next week, we'll be covering Fear the Walking Dead Season 8, Episode 5, titled More Time Than You Know. Again, written by Andrew Chambliss and Ian Goldberg. This is the 5 times now. So they're basically writing this whole season. Directed by, I still haven't been able to find that, so to be determined. The description on YouTube TV says, the heroes fight the clock and Padre's forces. Which I was thinking, I'm like, okay, well, they were mentioned Daniel and, Madison getting geared up, or like, we know that there's a war brewing.
Yeah.
But then I looked at on my YouTube TV, the next, they had the last episode, episode 6, and its description said, Morgan fights his past as he and Madison race to stop Padre's expansion. So that was like, oh, I mean,
wait a minute.
I was hoping that this gets wrapped up and we move to something else. But I don't know. That's the
I don't know,
mid-season finale.
man. They've got to have a decent cliffhanger, so we don't know.
Yeah, because then we have to wait until, I don't know, whenever, October, November,
Yep.
whenever Fear comes back.
September, October, whenever.
Yeah. All right, well, let's just end this now. All right, so until next time, I'm Kyle.
And I'm LT.
And this is Fear the Walking Dead Talk Through. Good night, everyone.
Good night.